I am an Omega, a 100% match for Zane Hawthorne, the antidote forced upon him during his rut. I loved him, but all I received in return were his cold, harsh words. A cave-in. We were trapped in a dark cavern. The scent of lime, my pheromones mingled with blood, spilling out, so thick it was bitter. He avoided me like the plague, his voice hoarse. Even at a time like this, you can't stop trying to seduce an alpha with your pheromones. Lyndon Sterling, you're truly wretched. I curled up, secretly pressing my clothes against the wound piercing my abdomen and waist. I whispered, I'm sorry. After I die, you'll never have to smell my pheromones again. You must be happy about that. The adrenaline that had spiked when I was injured began to subside. Then I felt the pain. My abdomen ached, and so did my back. It hurt so much I was afraid to breathe. But I couldn't stop my pheromones from surging out with my blood. Within seconds, the dark cave was filled with the scent of lime, so thick it was bitter. Zane was leaning against the wall on the other side of the cave. His voice was hoarse, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Even at a time like this, you can't stop trying to seduce an alpha with your pheromones. Lyndon Sterling, you're truly wretched. Even though I couldn't see Zane's face, I could imagine his expression perfectly. His jawline taut, his eyes cold and mocking. He was always like this. A dense, prickling pain spread through my chest. I desperately wanted to say, it's not like that. I wasn't releasing my pheromones on purpose. I had never tried to seduce him. But since Zane always found me to be a bother, it was probably best not to let him know I was hurt. So I curled my body up, secretly pressing my clothes against the bleeding wound in my abdomen. I whispered, I'm sorry. I was the first to notice the collapse. I saw a rock falling directly toward Zane's head. Without a second thought, I lunged, knocking him to the ground. Earth and stone rained down. The spot where we fell happened to form a small cavern. He was completely unharmed. But I had been hit by a falling rock. Playing innocent is useless, Zane said viciously. You'd better get a hold of your disgusting pheromones, right now. I couldn't stop the pheromones escaping with my blood, so I could only grit my teeth and press harder against the wound. Zane wouldn't let it go. Not going to listen. His voice was calm, almost cruel. It's no use, Lyndon. It doesn't matter that you protected me just now, or that you're releasing your pheromones to please me. It's all useless. I have full control of Hawthorne Industries now. No one can force me to stay married to you anymore. Tomorrow, we're ending this marriage. Those words were like a 1,000-ton flood, effortlessly washing away the 10 years of our past. My heart was left in ruins. I blinked slowly. My throat was tight as I managed. Okay, if I'm still alive tomorrow, that is. Meeting Zane Hawthorne was the biggest accident of my life. At 13, I was diagnosed with high-functioning autism. Although I was in the category of autistic individuals closest to normal, I still displayed clear signs of social withdrawal, obsessive tendencies, and repetitive behaviors. In the doctor's office, he sighed as he looked at me. Such a beautiful, delicate child. What a shame. At the time, my father's company had just gone public. The Sterlings, a self-made family, had finally clawed their way into the high society of Seaport City. My illness became a shameful secret. I was locked away at home. The only people I saw each day were my family and my private tutor, until I met Zane. That day, the staff was busy with a family banquet and forgot to lock my bedroom door. The sound of beautiful music drifted up from the villa's back garden. I wanted to hear it more clearly, so I opened the door and walked out. But I had only just reached the ground floor when a group of children surrounded me, pointing and jeering. Mute idiot, I grew tense, covering my ears and crawling under a table. They only got worse, stomping their feet and shouting as they circled the table. My older sister, Rosalind, stood behind them, watching with a quiet smile. And then I saw Zane. He wasn't as tall as he is now, but he already had a habit of frowning. Get lost, Zane glared at the crowd, saving me with that one single command. He crouched down, looking at me with confusion. Are you an idiot? Why didn't you call for help when they were bullying you? I looked into his handsome eyes and nodded. I was an idiot, because my mother, father, and sister all said so. Zane actually chuckled, as if my answer had broken his anger. He ruffled my hair, his voice firm yet gentle. No one calls themselves an idiot. You're not an idiot. That day I experienced an accident, and I felt fear and anxiety, but I also etched Zane Hawthorne into my memory. Of all the people I knew, he was the most patient with me, and the only one who didn't find me boring. My therapist, Dr. Shaw, asked me, "How do you feel about Zane?" I thought about it seriously for a moment. "I like him, Dr. Shaw. Do you like your mother, father, and sister?" I blinked and said solemnly, "No, the only one I like is Zane." 3 after that, Zane started coming to see me often. He said he was tired of being constantly set up on dates with different Omegas. And a quiet beta was a comfort to him. The Hawthorne's prestige was second to none in Seaport City. As an S-Class Alpha, Zane was a prize everyone was trying to claim, so my parents didn't stop him from visiting. In fact, they wished he would come every day. Each time Zane walked through the door, my mother would push my dolled-up sister in front of him. "Mr. Hawthorne, our Rosie is an Omega. It would be better for you two to spend time together." Zane wouldn't even glance at my sister. "I'm here for Lyndon." Zane hated being controlled. He avoided Rosalind. He often came to sit with me during my lessons, meals, and afternoon naps. He would also bring me sets of colored pencils with every shade imaginable. Zane would call me a handful when I obsessively arranged the pencils by color. But when he heard Rosalind say the same thing about me, he would retort fiercely, "You Omegas are the handfuls." His favorite thing to do was paint with me in the locked attic. I liked to paint moons and only moons. Zane said the moons I painted were even more beautiful than the one in the sky. He turned off the lights and drew all the curtains. Absolute silence. We hid in the dark space under a table and lit a tiny candle. The dim, yellow light illuminated the drawing paper beneath the table. "Lyndon, look, we have our own moon." I couldn't tell if it was candlelight or moonlight on Zane's face. I only knew that his high-bridged nose and deep-set eyes were beautiful. I gently traced my fingertips over his warm eyebrows, down his nose, and finally to the sharp corners of his mouth. A shudder ran through Zane's body. He looked at me, his gaze heavy. "Lyndon, you're a little strange." I quickly pulled my hand back. I could hear the violent thumping of my own heart. Suddenly, my lips touched something soft and moist. Zane's face was very close to mine, so close my eyelashes brushed against his cheek. He pulled his lips away and smiled wickedly. "Your reaction now is even stranger." Zane didn't know I was sick. He just thought I was strange from time to time. The strangest thing happened on the 461st day we knew each other. That evening, I suddenly developed a high fever. A strong lime scent radiated from my body. The moment Zane smelled it, his eyes turned bloodshot, and the muscles all over his body began to tremble. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. "You too." Then he stormed out the door and never came to see me again. I missed Zane. I missed him even more when I was being held down on the bed for inhibitor injections. I overheard bits and pieces of the doctor's conversation outside the door. It's common for S-Class Omegas to present late. This means the young Mr. Sterling's heats will be more difficult than a typical Omega's, and his dependency on Alphas will be more severe. I had become an Omega. I could guess the second half of the sentence Zane never finished. "You too are an Omega." The very type of person he hated most. For all sound was blocked out by the fallen rocks and layers of earth. The cavern felt completely isolated from the world. I've always liked the quiet, but quiet couldn't stop the pain. Covered in a cold sweat, I begged him in a trembling voice, "Zane, could you release some of your pheromones for me?" Just a little. My pheromones were a 100% match for Zane's. "His scent could bring me pleasure, even ease my pain." In the darkness, Zane's voice was heavy, as if he were struggling to suppress his own desires. He sneered, "What, you didn't bring one of your stolen shirts or ties with you today?" I was speechless, able to do nothing but bite my lip hard. So stingy, so he knew. He knew I stole his shirts and ties to smell them. It started on a chaotic and painful night. I was naked, limping to the bathroom to clean myself and apply medicine. The reflection in the mirror showed a body covered in bruises, the only unblemished skin being the scent gland on the back of my neck. No mark, no comfort. This made an uncontrollable sadness wash over me. Even when the pain had been at its worst, I hadn't felt this sad. The biology textbooks were right. An Omega who doesn't receive a mark or comfort after intimacy will feel empty and sorrowful. My heart felt as if it were being wound with barbed wire, and the space inside was hollow. So this was what emptiness and sorrow felt like. That was when I started secretly taking Zane's shirts, hiding in the bathroom to smell them. The shirts he'd worn were still white, but they were saturated with his pheromones. It smelled so good, that ebony scent that was uniquely his. I would crouch there until my legs went numb before reluctantly putting the shirt back, but I still couldn't resist hiding the tie that went with it. I wrote an IOU in my diary. Lyndon Sterling is borrowing one tie from Zane Hawthorne dark blue, diagonal stripes. I repeated it in my mind. As soon as I stopped feeling sad, I'll give it back to Zane. But 246 days had passed. And I still often felt sad. It was strange because a long time ago, Zane had always made me feel happy and joyful. My voice grew even smaller. "The tie, I'll give it back to you." But this only made Zane angrier. "Don't bother. Just throw it away." Just as he finished speaking, the ground began to shake slightly. The roar of heavy machinery rumbled from outside the cave. Help had arrived. The earth and rocks at the mouth of the cave were dislodged by the vibrations of the machinery outside. The space grew even smaller. I was starting to feel the oxygen thin out. Zane stood up and walked to the entrance, grabbing a handful of dirt. A bunch of idiots. The soil on this mountain is loose. If it rained, a landslide would have been inevitable. He walked past me and sat back down in his original spot. The Sterling family is in charge of this project. You know that, right? He said coldly. When I didn't answer, he scoffed and continued. Did the Sterlings push you into my bed just so they could cut corners on construction materials and pocket the difference? How pathetic, I asked blankly. The Sterlings cut corners. Zane. I brought you here today so you could see for yourself just how many dirty deeds your family has committed. The spot where we're buried is where steel reinforcements should have been used. But before the collapse, I saw that the steel bars weren't the specified size. When we were signing the contract, I warned my father, people who use Omegas to curry favor with Alphas are nothing but animals. He let out a cold laugh. And how can an animal be a partner to a human? It was the second time I had heard the word animal. The first was on that night 4 years after we'd last seen each other. My mother pointed to a house with sealed windows and doors. Linny, Zane is in there. Haven't you been waiting for him? Go on in. He's in his rut right now. If he endures it alone, he could die. Your pheromones can save him. Are you willing to save him? I am, I said softly, without a second thought. High-level Alphas were prone to losing control during their ruts. Some even experienced severe complications, leading to shock, so I didn't doubt my mother's words for a second. The heavy door was opened from the outside. I was shoved violently inside. The room was quiet. I could clearly hear low, heavy panting. In a room thick with the scent of ebony, I pushed forward against the storm of S-class alpha pheromones. Once my eyes adjusted to the dimness, I saw Zane slumped in a corner, wearing a bite guard. He was much bigger now. His exposed muscles were taut and corded. He was staring at me. His eyes were blood red, like a ferocious lion stalking its prey. Before I could react, he pounced, pinning me beneath him. The scents of ebony and lime tangled and merged, making the already humid air thick and cloying. Helplessly, I glanced around. I whispered, "It's dark in here. Shall we look at the moon together, please, just like we used to?" But Zane was clearly not himself today. He looked terrifyingly unfamiliar. I summoned my courage and unfastened his bite guard. "Does that make you feel more comfortable?" I asked, my voice trembling. Zane's brow furrowed deeply. He gritted his teeth. "Lyndon Sterling, so this was your goal. To make me lose myself to my pheromones like an animal, controlled by primal lust." Zane's eyes were filled with hatred, ignoring my look of bewilderment. He said word by word, "Then I'll give you all exactly what you want." 6. The harsh sound of fabric tearing ripped through the air. My skin, suddenly exposed, trembled. The next second, Zane's scorching body pressed down on me. His hot breath ghosted over my ear. "You chose this. You deserve it." My eyes flew open, still not understanding what I had chosen. Then my body and mind were pierced by an agonizing pain. I was drowned again and again by the pain and an indescribable sensation. The sting of his canines sinking into my skin was trivial in comparison. A searing flood of pheromones surged from the wound, coursing through my entire body. For 7 days I cried, I screamed, I struggled. It was all useless. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in a hospital bed. My throat was raw. My wrists and ankles were wrapped in gauze, covering the ligature marks. On the scent gland at the back of my neck, deep teeth marks remained. He had bonded me for life. An alpha who permanently bonds an omega who is not their spouse faces severe legal consequences. So we were married quickly and moved in together. I thought that after that, Zane would go back to how he was before, that he wouldn't hurt me so much anymore. But things didn't go as I'd hoped. He became even worse. Zane would often loom over me from behind, his tone as rough as his actions. "This is what you craved, isn't it?" He couldn't see me shaking my head, nor could he hear my whispered pleas. "Please don't. I was only trying to help you." Every night, Zane found a new way to make me cry. I must have done something wrong, but I didn't know what it was. I wanted so badly to be more normal. Then maybe I could understand why Zane was so angry. I was both terrified of Zane and desperate for his closeness. It was such a contradiction. I couldn't sleep at night, my mind racing, trying to solve this puzzle. Later, I thought this must be the dependency the doctor had talked about. Zane was my alpha, and so I was hopelessly dependent on him. But Zane despised me, and he despised my dependency. This was an even bigger puzzle. No one had ever taught me what to do when the person you love hates you. The sounds from outside the cave were getting closer, but I was starting to feel a deathly chill all over my body. It was an early sign of shock. I might not make it to the rescue, but if I died, maybe I would finally be free from this dependency. And Zane, he would probably be happy, right? 7. My consciousness began to blur. Suddenly, I thought of Muffin. Muffin was the stray dog I had found. He was probably the only being in this world who would miss me. I had been afraid Zane wouldn't let me keep him, so I had secretly tucked the palm-sized puppy into my pocket. But I was terrible at pretending and lying. Zane found him quickly. "You have 1 minute, get rid of it." I clutched my pocket and took a step back. "If I get rid of him, he'll die." Zane got angry again. "I'll count to 3. Either he goes or the two of you can get out." I turned to go back to my room, but Zane stopped me. "What are you doing?" I turned back and answered earnestly, "Packing my things." Zane's brow furrowed, his voice rising in anger. "You're leaving? For a dog?" I nodded. Zane scoffed. "And where do you plan to go with it?" I thought for 2 seconds, then said gravely, "I haven't decided." Zane looked up at the sky and paced in a circle twice. Finally losing his patience, he said, "Lyndon, I give up. Just watch him. If I find him running around or peeing anywhere, I swear I'll bury him alive." I flinched. I covered Muffin's tiny ears. He shouldn't have to hear such terrible words. The roaring outside the cave paused for a moment. I gathered my strength. "Could you please take care of Muffin for me? And in the future, please don't be so mean to him, okay? Take care of him." Zane's voice seemed to come from far away, yet it was crystal clear. "Lyndon, who do you think you are? If I'm in a bad mood, I'll smash him to death right in front of you. Just like that time I smashed your inhibitor. That time, I was on the floor, struggling against waves of heat. Zane had accidentally dropped and shattered my only remaining inhibitor. He looked down on me, his tone light. Oh, I lost my grip. "Lyndon, I can help you, you know. Beg me. A heat can easily devour an Omega's sanity and dignity." I tugged at the hem of his pants. "Zane, I'm begging you," I sobbed. Just a little pheromonal comfort, or even a temporary mark, would have been enough. Through my blurry, tear-filled vision, Zane smirked and leaned down to my ear. "Sorry, but your pheromones are too disgusting. I really can't bring myself to bite you." At his words, a colossal wave of shame washed over me. My lips moved, but no words came out, so I endured it in silence for 3 days, eventually fainting and being taken to the hospital. So that time, he did it on purpose. That inhibitor, my last hope, he had destroyed it deliberately. "Those things you said them on purpose too, right?" I tried to control my trembling. "No," Zane said cruelly. "Your pheromones really are disgusting." Something inside my chest shattered with a deafening crash. The sharp fragments tore me to shreds, leaving me bleeding. I couldn't feel the pain anymore, only a profound, bone-deep cold. Perhaps hearing my ragged breathing, Zane asked mockingly, "Are you angry?" I nodded slowly in the darkness. He was unfazed. "Go ahead, be angry. You'll still come running back to me first, just like you did when we were kids." It was true. In the past, whenever Zane upset me, I would be the one to pretend to forget, to quietly creep to his side and tug on his sleeve. I was afraid that if I stayed angry for too long, Zane would leave and wouldn't want to be my friend anymore. But this time, he had been angry for too long. Since I was 14, until now, he had been punishing me. My consciousness was about to collapse. I murmured weakly, "This time I'm done with you." "What did you say?" Zane's words were drowned out by a massive roar. A blinding white light flooded in. Amidst the cacophony of voices and gasps of shock, I finally closed my eyes. "Zane, this time I'm the one leaving you." As the light exploded before his eyes, Zane heard the rescuers' shocked cries. "My God, there's so much blood, someone's injured, call the medics now." His heart skipped a beat. "Who? Whose blood? Who's hurt?" Zane forced his eyes open, but a sharp pain made him wince. A rescuer covered his eyes with a dark cloth and answered, "The Omega who was trapped with you, sir." "Didn't you know?" A violent tremor shot through Zane's body. He ripped the cloth from his face and stumbled back toward the cave, his steps frantic. A rescuer ran after him, trying to stop him. "Mr. Hawthorne, you can't open your eyes yet. It's best if you leave the area immediately." Zane paid no attention, pushing his way back to the cave entrance, which was now surrounded by medics. His voice was unsteady. "Lyndon, come out here. Now, what kind of trick are you pulling this time?" There was no response. Zane finally couldn't bear it any longer and pushed past a few nurses to look inside. He was met with a sea of crimson. Lyndon lay curled in a pool of blood, his eyes shut tight, a single tear clinging to his porcelain-white face. He was completely still. The doctors surrounding him were trying to apply pressure to the wound. One said anxiously, "He's badly injured and in shock. We have to get him to a hospital immediately." Zane stared, dumbfounded, at the scene before him. For a moment his ears rang. In the silent movie playing in his head, the blood beneath Lyndon's body seared his eyes. "Heh," Zane let out an abrupt, strange laugh. "That's impossible." His expression was unnatural as he said, "How could he be hurt?" During the cave-in, we were clearly, a doctor interrupted him with a frown. "The wound was caused by a falling rock. He's too thin. It nearly went straight through his side." A falling rock. Zane's mind flashed back to the moment the earth gave way, to the sudden, hard shove from Lyndon. So the rock that had hit Lyndon had originally been heading for him. He suddenly felt like he couldn't breathe. He grabbed his nearby assistant. His breathing ragged as he yelled, "Make the call for the helicopter on the helicopter." The roar of the rotors was deafening, but Zane could clearly hear the sound of blood dripping onto the floor near his feet. Lyndon was still bleeding. The gauze they were using to apply pressure was soaked through, and fresh blood trickled over the edge of the stretcher. It formed a small puddle by Zane's feet. The scent of his pheromones, now tinged with blood, drifted up like a hand squeezing Zane's throat. He stared at Lyndon's pale face, half hidden by an oxygen mask, as his own words from the cave echoed in his ears. He had said Lyndon was using his pheromones to seduce him. He had called Lyndon wretched. Zane felt as if a piece of red-hot charcoal was lodged in his throat. His heart felt like it was being pierced by needles. A doctor applied a new bandage, pressing even harder on Lyndon's wound. Zane held his breath, his brow furrowing sharply as if he could feel Lyndon's pain. But Lyndon remained still, not a flicker of pain on his face. "Doesn't he feel pain?" The doctor paused for a second before answering, "With an injury this severe. Of course it's painful." The initial shock and adrenaline rush would have numbed it, but it must have been followed by excruciating pain. The doctor asked, puzzled, "Didn't he cry out in pain while you were trapped?" Had Lyndon cried out? No. He had only asked in the smallest voice for his pheromones. Even in the past, when Zane had sometimes taken his anger out on him, using too much force, Lyndon would only frown slightly. Then he would whisper haltingly, "Softer, can you be softer?" When the aftermath was too much to bear, he would just quietly hide in the bathroom, smelling the stolen shirt and tie. In 3 years of marriage, he had never once asked for a bit of pheromonal comfort. But in the cave, he had asked for the first time, hoping for even a tiny bit of comfort to ease the bone-deep agony. And what had he heard in response? What Lyndon had heard was Zane's cruel refusal, followed by a string of mocking insults. Smack. Zane slapped himself hard across the face. He didn't even know his own Omega was injured. He hadn't helped stop the bleeding. He hadn't helped ease his pain. Zane hung his head, squeezing his eyes shut. His brow was knotted in a tight, impossible knot. He pressed his clasped hands to his forehead, thinking with a sliver of desperate hope that as soon as Lyndon woke up, he would apologize. And he would be better to him from now on. He wouldn't be so cruel anymore. He needed to replenish his lost blood, so he'd hire a nutritionist to create a meal plan for Lyndon. And he would also, all of Zane's frantic, detailed plans were shattered by a piercing alarm. He stared blankly at the flat line on the monitor screen. The realization dawned on him slowly, horribly. All those things he was planning to do in the future, he might never get the chance. 9. I had a very long dream. So long it felt as if it spanned the last 10 years of my life. In the dream, at 13, I was once again cornered under a table by a group of children. But this time, Zane was standing with my sister, my mother, and my father, and he was laughing at me too. It turned out they were all the same. I tried to hide under the table forever, but my mother yanked me out. Her grip on my arm was painful. "You should be grateful you presented as an Omega, and 100% match for the Hawthorne heir at that, otherwise, I would have thrown you out long ago. An Omega's purpose is to be attached to an Alpha for life. Marrying Zane is the greatest value you will ever have. Is it because I'm an Omega that you used me?" The thought dawned on me. It would have been better if I wasn't an Omega. Then I would have been thrown out. That would have been better than being entangled with Zane for so many years. The scene swirled and changed. I saw a divorce agreement in my hands. Zane's voice came from all around me. Lyndon, where are you? I'm sorry. I regret it. Can we not get divorced, please?" I clutched the divorce papers to my chest and ran as fast as I could. "Zane, you're not allowed to regret this," I thought as I ran. "Lyndon, you're finally free. You have to forget Zane. From now on, you will live however you want." I ran faster and faster, but just as I was about to burst out of the fog, I suddenly tripped and fell. My right foot twitched in the bedsheets. The movement pulled at the wound in my side, sending a sharp jolt of pain through me. Zane's hoarse voice was by my ear. "Lyndon, you've been unconscious for 2 days. You're finally awake." I only frowned slightly. But he shouted, "Doctor, get the doctor, quickly." Then he whispered softly in my ear, "Lyndon, does it still hurt a lot? Don't be afraid. I've already released a lot of my pheromones. You should feel better once you smell them." Pheromones. But I couldn't smell a thing. I slowly opened my eyes and saw Zane's face, covered in stubble. He was still wearing the same suit from the cave-in, its front smeared with dirt. My head was still dizzy, and I had no strength in my body. I struggled to look up at him and used all my energy to say one sentence. "The divorce papers, give them to me." My energy was spent. Before I slipped back into unconsciousness, I saw Zane staring at me, his face a mask of stunned disbelief. He seemed to have forgotten his own words, but it didn't matter. I remembered. 10. I don't know how long I was asleep, but I was woken by voices beside me. "Severe blood loss can cause unpredictable complications. Furthermore, our tests show the patient has been in a state of pheromone deprivation for a long time, the doctor said, asking carefully, "Have you never given your Omega any pheromonal comfort?" "No," Zane's voice was rough and hoarse. "Even when he was in so much pain he couldn't bear it, I didn't give him any." The doctor sighed softly and tried to reassure him. "It's all right, there will be opportunities to make up for it in the future. You can try to release more pheromones for him. I've already released a lot." Zane's tone was uncharacteristically defeated, but he's still in so much pain that he's covered in sweat, and he's bitten his lip until it bleeds. The doctor took out an instrument. After a soft beep, he said, "The concentration of alpha pheromones in the air is indeed very high. This shouldn't be happening. I can't smell them," I said, ignoring Zane's shocked expression. As if talking to myself, I whispered, "And it seems I can't release my own pheromones anymore either." After an emergency examination, I was diagnosed with hemorrhagic damage to my scent gland. This meant I could no longer produce pheromones, nor could I smell them. I had become a beta again. This was truly good news, but clearly Zane didn't think so. His face was grim as he tore the test results to shreds. Then he grabbed the doctor by the collar, demanding another examination. "Impossible, this is absolutely impossible," the doctor. "Mr. Hawthorne, please calm down. Our test results are not wrong." Zane finally let go. He was silent for a long time before asking in a choked voice, "When will he recover?" The doctor's tone was regretful. "Maybe tomorrow or maybe never." 11 that night, Zane kept watch by my bed, just as he had for the past few days. Only now his once straight back was slumped in defeat. In the middle of the night, I was woken by pain again. Seeing me frown, Zane quickly got up to give me a painkiller. His excessive release of pheromones had made his complexion terrible. Even his hands were shaking. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." A tear fell onto the hand holding the cup. "Lyndon, I closed my eyes and turned my head away. "I'm done with you. I wasn't just saying it." The hospital room fell silent. I heard Zane's breathing, suddenly harsh and ragged. He took a quick breath and said in a low voice, "Can we start over, please?" I wanted to curse at him, but you can only demand something from others if you hold yourself to the same standard, so I held back. Zane thought I was tired. He patted me gently, as if lulling me to sleep. He seemed to mistake my silence for a form of pouting. From that day on, he started talking to me a lot, his tone filled with a long-lost gentleness. "Linny, can you stop being difficult, please? I swear I'll never be so cruel to you again. I'll be so good to you. How about I arrange a gallery show for your paintings? We can go pick a venue as soon as you're discharged. Say something to me, Linny, even if you just curse at me." I just watched him, silent and still. For a moment, I felt like he had changed back into the Zane I used to know. Why? Was it guilt, or was it because I had become a beta again? Probably both. Perhaps having heard that I had reverted to a beta, Rosalind made a rare appearance at the hospital to visit me. She was heavily made up, desperately releasing her pheromones in front of Zane. "Mr. Hawthorne, surely you can consider me now. How can a rare, top-tier alpha like you settle for a beta? My pheromones might not be 100% match for yours, but they smell wonderful." She leaned toward Zane. "Why don't you have a smell?" A dangerous glint grew in Zane's eyes. "If you came here for this," he said coldly, "you can get out now." Rosalind's blush-caked face twitched. "Mr. Hawthorne, you someone get in here and throw her out." Two men in black suits opened the door and grabbed Rosalind, dragging her out. Humiliated, Rosalind shrieked in anger. "Zane Hawthorne, who do you think you are? After all this time, you still don't know you married a simpleton." Zane's eyes narrowed, and he signaled for the bodyguards to stop. His expression was terrifying, his voice dangerously low. "Say that again." Rosalind broke free from the guards and straightened her dress. "You can't be telling me you never noticed that Lyndon isn't normal. He's autistic, he's a complete idiot." Seeing the shock on Zane's face, Rosalind sneered and continued. "Back then, when it looked like our big fish was getting away, my mom told Lyndon you'd die during your rut. It only took a few words to trick him into that isolation room. Even knowing how brutal a top-tier alpha can be during a rut, he still foolishly walked in, thinking he was saving your life. Ha ha ha. We all thought he would die in that room. We never expected the idiot to be so tough. He actually survived and married you." 12 I listened calmly, my face expressionless. I remembered the words I'd overheard while pretending to be asleep in that hospital bed years ago. My mother's annoyed voice, speaking to my father. "I can't believe he lived. If he died, we could have extorted a fortune from the Hawthorns." My father's hushed reply, "Keep your voice down, there are other ways. We'll force Zane to marry him." So, my mother had lied to me about Zane dying. The one who was supposed to die was always me. Rosalind was still laughing and taunting. "We're all in the same boat now. The cave-in involves both the Hawthorne and Sterling families. If you dare to do anything to the Sterlings, we'll take you down with us. You can kiss your billion-dollar investment goodbye. You can just stay tied to this idiot until you die." Zane lunged forward, grabbing Rosalind by the throat and slamming her against the wall. Each word was squeezed from between clenched teeth. "If I ever hear you talk about Lyndon again, you're dead." He didn't let go until Rosalind's face turned purple. He looked down at her as she coughed and gasped on the floor. $1 billion is nothing," he said coldly. "It's a bargain to buy the three of you a ticket to hell." Rosalind shuddered, her head snapping up to look at him. "You're crazy, Zane, you're insane." She was dragged out, her shrill cry cut off by the closing door. The hospital room returned to silence. Zane turned around slowly, like an old, broken machine. His lips trembled, but only a breath of air escaped. I leaned against the headboard, looking at him calmly, as if to confirm all his suspicions. Lyndon isn't normal because he's sick. His supposedly deliberate advances and self-sacrifice never existed. Lyndon was just trying to save him. He had only seen him as the sole color in his bleak life, his only moonlight. But now I thought Lyndon didn't love him anymore. 13, the way Zane looked at me changed. The tenderness and curiosity were now mixed with a deep sorrow. His tone changed too, like he was coaxing a child. I really wanted to tell him that I didn't have an intellectual disability. The next day, the Hawthorne family's lawyers came to my hospital room. They informed me that Zane had collected a great deal of evidence of the Sterling family's crimes and had already reported them for corruption and gross negligence. The lawyer asked, "Mr. Sterling, Mr. Hawthorne has instructed me to help you if you wish to press charges against your family for abuse." I looked up at him and gave an unrelated answer. "I want to dissolve my marriage to Zane Hawthorne. Can you help me with that?" Less than 2 weeks later, I heard the news that all 3 members of the Sterling family had been imprisoned. Zane had hired a top-tier legal team to ensure they would be in prison for a very, very long time. But Zane didn't come to the hospital for those 2 days. I heard it was because the scandal had cost Hawthorne Industries over $1 billion. His father had beaten him severely. When I saw Zane again, the bruises on his face had not yet faded. He tried to act casual. "Linny, no one will ever bully you again, but the person who bullied me the most was you." The 3rd time I pushed the lawyer to file for divorce, a strikingly beautiful woman came to see me. Her movements were elegant, but her face was etched with sorrow. She said, "So you're Lyndon." "Hello, I'm Zane's mother." I was surprised, as Zane had never mentioned her. She smiled faintly, her voice heavy. "You have such big eyes. You really are very cute. No wonder Zane likes you so much." I said thank you, then asked, "Is there something you need from me?" Her smile vanished. "I came to talk to you about Zane. I was forcibly bonded by his father against my will. I was in heat, and his father was in a rut. 2 people dominated by their pheromones. We were like animals. Soon after, I was pregnant with Zane, and only then did his father and I get married. As you can imagine, we weren't happy. I wasn't a good wife or a good mother. Back then, I hated his father and I hated Zane. I saw him as a mistake in my life, so I never held him, never gave him any warmth. I cursed at him, hit him." As she spoke, she began to sob. I frowned and said, "You shouldn't have done that." "I know." She dabbed at her tears with a handkerchief and continued, "When Zane grew up, he began to hate me, hate his father, and hate all Omegas. Because of me, he rejected all Omegas. It's all because of me, Lyndon." She stood and took my hand, her voice trembling. "Can you forgive him? Please, he's in so much pain right now. He's not eating or sleeping, just reading books about autism. He didn't mean to hurt you. Can you 2 get back together? I'm sick, I'm dying. This is the only thing I can do to help him." I looked at her coolly and said, "The fact that you are dying has nothing to do with what happened between us. If you feel sorry, you should tell him that to his face. But as for what you did to him in the past, I don't think that can ever be fixed. One of the benefits of being a simpleton is that you can't be guilt-tripped." Her eyes widened, her gaze unfocused. Large teardrops rolled from her eyes, landing on her bony hand. She said nothing more. When she left, it was as if the last ounce of strength had been drained from her body. She must have run into Zane outside the room because I heard a furious roar. "Why did you do this? I don't need your help, I never needed you." The sound of muffled sobs drifted in, then faded away. When Zane came in, his eyes were red-rimmed. "I'm sorry, I don't know how she found you." He looked up at me and said hoarsely, What did she say to you? Can you tell me?" "You're in pain," I said succinctly. "She's dying." Zane's fists, hanging at his sides, clenched and then relaxed. "It's all karma," he said with difficulty. Since I was already speaking to him, I asked directly, "When can we get divorced?" 14, "What do you want, Linny? I'll give you anything, just don't divorce me, okay?" Zane must have read a lot of books about autism because he had learned the standard methods for communicating with someone on the spectrum. I disliked his tone and his tactics. I shook my head, refusing to communicate further. But the next day, Zane actually brought in my childhood behavioral therapist. She was a gentle woman. "It's been a long time, Lyndon." I nodded and asked, "Hello, Dr. Shaw." "Did Zane send you?" Dr. Shaw shook her head and smiled. "It's because you haven't been to the clinic in so long, and your phone wasn't working, so I contacted him. However, Mr. Hawthorne did talk to me a lot about you. I thought he would be more concerned with your condition and treatment methods, but he wasn't. He was only focused on your likes and dislikes. He asked me how he could make you feel comfortable, relaxed, and happy. He also asked how to win you back if he made you angry." I frowned, feeling resistant. "Are you here to persuade me for him too?" "No." Dr. Shaw laughed and shook her head. "I told him that people with autism are often difficult to get close to because they are like lonely stars or like pearls hidden in a shell. I told him that if you earn the trust, acceptance, and dependence of one of these stars, it is an incredibly rare thing. It's like a pearl willingly opening its shell to show you its softest, most precious part." After hearing that, Zane cried. He cried so hard. He said he had hurt the most precious person in his life. He said he loved you and that he knew he was wrong. Yes. And now the soft flesh inside the shell was covered in wounds, and the shell had clamped shut again. Dr. Shaw continued, "Lyndon, I'm not here to persuade you, but there are some things you should know." I asked blankly. "Know what?" Dr. Shaw said slowly. "You should know that you won't only receive mockery and pity. You can also receive importance and respect, and even love. You should know that you deserve to make your own choices, and you deserve to live a freer life." After she finished, Dr. Shaw smiled. So did I. I think my resolve had just grown stronger. The bloodshot veins in Zane's eyes never faded, but he always acted cheerful in front of me. "Linny, I've set up a charity for autism. Can I name it after you? I'll deposit a sum of money into it every year so that more people with autism can get intervention and treatment. What do you think?" I looked at his eager, pleading expression and said, "That's your business. The only thing I cared about was when we could get divorced." Zane's expression froze. He looked at me for a long time. He knelt on one knee in front of my wheelchair and took my hand. "Linny, can we go back to how we were before, please?" I pulled my hand away and lifted the hem of my hospital gown to show him. "The scar, it's big. We can't go back to how things were." He had seen the scar many times, but he still looked as if he was seeing it for the first time. Zane's eyes reddened instantly. He reached out a trembling hand, wanting to touch it, but it froze in mid-air. "I'm sorry, Linny. I didn't know you were hurt then. I'm so sorry. I was getting bored." I cut him off. "You said you would divorce me. You can't go back on your word." Zane froze, silent for a long time. Then he carefully hugged me, pleading, "Linny, don't leave me." I went rigid in his arms, my whole body tense. 15 Zane kept stalling. It was either the lawyer being too busy or a problem with the divorce papers. Until his rut began. After I was discharged, Zane started working from home. When he came out of his study, his face was flushed, and beads of sweat dotted his forehead. I knew he was in pain, but this time he would have to endure it alone. This was probably what he wanted. Because there was no more lime-scented pheromone to make him lose control. Zane stumbled into the bedroom. He frantically pulled out all of my clothes, burying himself in them like a nesting bird. His breath hitched as he desperately inhaled the faint lime scent that still clung to the fabric. But unfortunately for him, there was very little of it left. Zane looked up at me and begged, "Hold me, Linny." I touched the shriveled gland on the back of my neck and took out an inhibitor. "I don't have any pheromones now," I said flatly. "You should use this." The pain in Zane's eyes deepened. He reached out a hand and said hoarsely, "Okay, divorce me and I'll give it to you." I suddenly pulled my hand back. So many times in the past, Zane had used pheromones or inhibitors to blackmail me into doing things I couldn't bear. Today, it was my turn. I mimicked his tone and looked down on him. "If you want something, you have to pay the price." The muscles in Zane's jaw clenched. He glared at me with red eyes and roared, "No divorce, crash." The inhibitor shattered on the floor. I moved my wheelchair forward, letting the wheels roll over the fragments, getting closer to Zane. "Zane, do you remember? This is what you used to do to me." I looked into his bloodshot eyes and said slowly, "You know, I've always wanted to say, if you hate being controlled by your pheromones so much, shouldn't you have your own scent gland removed? No gland, no pheromones. You would never be controlled by primal lust again. Why did you always have to blame someone else?" I backed away, watching as Zane, pathetic as an addict, collapsed among the messy pile of clothes and sobbed. "Zane." I called his name just like I used to, and then I said, "I hate you so much." 16 Zane finally agreed to the divorce. His rut wasn't even over when he had the lawyers finalize everything. I heard that this rut was particularly severe and had already sent him to the emergency room twice. The doctors said it was because he had suffered extreme mental and physical trauma. On a bright, sunny morning, I left the villa without a single look back. I threw away my phone, got a new number, and moved to a new city with my little dog. Using my talent for drawing, I found a job as an illustrator at a publishing house. It took me a long time to adjust to my new life, but gradually, I found it to be quiet and peaceful. Leaving Zane had made me much luckier. For example, I found a very affordable apartment near the publishing house that allowed pets. And for another, I kept winning grand prizes whenever I bought something at the convenience store. Sometimes it was an air conditioner, sometimes it was a refrigerator and a microwave. Since I never saw any appliances for sale in the store, I began to suspect it was some new kind of scam. Later, the store manager patiently explained that I had won because I was the 888th, 999th, and 1111th customer. So I started to believe that I was just very lucky. Even when the power went out one night and I saw fireworks being set off on the roof of the building across the street, it seemed perfectly normal. My apartment was only 500 meters from the publishing house, and in between was a restaurant that made delicious clay pot rice. The owner always put expensive ingredients in my food, like Wagyu beef and giant shrimp. The reason was always that I was the lucky customer of the day. So my daily routine was a triangle between the publisher, the rice pot place, and home. I liked this routine, this three-point life, and I was happy to work overtime. Drawing at the office saved on my electricity bill. I occasionally went out to sketch on sunny weekends and started trying to draw things other than the moon. I learned how to take the subway, though I often missed my train because I was afraid of the crowds. When I got home, I would hug Muffin and watch movies, thinking that I would be happy to live like this forever. But sometimes, I would get the strange feeling that someone was watching me. At the convenience store, outside the publishing house, on the subway, or in the park where I sketched. But whenever I turned to look, I never saw anyone. It can't be, I would tell myself. It can't be him. His name was like a scar. When I couldn't see it, I could ignore it. But the moment I saw it, the pain of the wound would return all over again. I didn't watch the news or listen to gossip, precisely because I didn't want to encounter any news about him. 17, my body never fully recovered from my injury. Whenever the temperature dropped or it snowed, I would inevitably catch a cold. The scar on my side would also become itchy and painful. But just before the first snowfall of the season, the publishing house suddenly announced a medical checkup. I was afraid of crowded hospitals, so I questioned it. But we just had a checkup today. My supervisor smiled. Lyndon, because you're a star employee, this checkup is a reward. You get to go to a private hospital, no waiting in line. When I still hesitated, he raised his eyebrows. It's a company benefit, and there's a gift for completing the checkup. I said, okay. After spending the whole night guessing what the gift might be, I went happily the next day. After a series of tedious examinations, the doctor solemnly advised me to keep warm and prescribed a large pile of medication. There was even a cream for my scar. Even more bizarrely, it was all free. They also gave me a gift package for a year's worth of checkups. I gradually started to feel that something was off. I concluded that the hospital must owe the publishing house money, and so the star employee benefit was a package of medical services and drugs. I clutched the bag of medicine, my heart aching. If this were cash, how much would it be? It turned out that hospital wasn't very good because 2 weeks later I still caught a cold. I waited until after work and walked to a nearby hospital to see a doctor. In the dead of night, the quiet emergency room was just what I needed. The doctor looked at my test results and told me I needed to be admitted. High fever with a lung infection. It's not severe, but it's safer to be hospitalized. I quickly shook my head. No, thank you, doctor. An IV drip will be fine. Staying in a noisy, chaotic hospital was worse than death for me. After I promised repeatedly to get my shots and take my medicine on time, the doctor finally agreed. The infusion room was cold. I huddled in a chair against the wall, pulling the hood of my down jacket over my head. The other patients gradually left. I started to relax. Drowsiness slowly consumed me. In a daze, someone sat down in the chair next to me. They gently moved my shoulder from the cold wall to their own, then used their body to support my head as it lolled to the side. It might have been the medicine taking effect. My mind wanted to wake up, but my eyes wouldn't open. In the end, all I could do was mumble an incoherent sorry. When I woke up, a nurse was removing my IV needle. The chair beside me was empty. I pressed the tape on the back of my hand and asked, "Thank you." "Excuse me, do you know the patient who was sitting next to me?" The nurse looked surprised. "He wasn't a patient, I thought you two were together." I thanked her distractedly and walked out of the hospital. The wind was biting. A taxi was parked at the hospital entrance. The driver rolled down the window and called out to me, "Hey, free rides for a limited time." I walked over and asked in a low voice, "Did Zane send you?" 18. The driver froze for a moment, then stammered, "I don't know him." A guy gave me $100 and told me to wait here for someone in a white down jacket. That's you right, you going. A rush of blood surged through me, and I couldn't stop shaking. It really was him. That ghost that wouldn't leave me alone, ignoring the driver's calls. I bolted, running toward home. My hood fell off. The cold wind was like a knife, stabbing at my collar, my nose, my eyes. A tall, dark figure was chasing me from behind, getting closer and closer. "Linny, please stop running." It was that familiar yet strange voice. I ran faster, but I tripped at the corner. The pain was so bad I couldn't get up. The next second, the person behind me scooped me up in their arms. "Where did you fall? Where does it hurt?" I struggled wildly in his arms. I squeezed my eyes shut so I wouldn't see him, and covered my ears so I wouldn't hear him. I screamed, "Go away, get away from me. Why did you have to show up again? Why won't you leave me alone, Zane? You're despicable. I was so close to forgetting you." Just a little bit more. My violent reaction seemed to frighten Zane. He gently set me down on a stone step and retreated 2 meters away. I glared at him. Farther, Zane took another 2 steps back. I stood up and limped toward home. After a few steps, I turned and yelled at him. "Don't follow me," Zane called from behind me. "What did you say?" "You're too far away. I can't hear you." Shameless. I shot him a glare and decided to just get home as fast as possible. Once inside, after a hot shower, I got out of bed and paced around the living room. Finally, I walked to the door. Looking through the peephole, I saw the dark patches on Zane's shoulders where the snow had melted. He was standing in front of my door, his gaze seeming to pierce through the wood and see me. Muffin, in my arms, barked at the door. "Linny, are you listening?" He moved closer to the door, his voice low. "Yesterday my mother died. That beautiful, cruel Omega." My hand tightened on the doorknob. I heard his hoarse voice. "I don't have a mother anymore. I used to hate her, but now I think even having a mother to hate is a good thing. Why did she have to die so soon? She hadn't even paid me back for what she owed me." My hand clenched and unclenched. In the end, I didn't open the door. It was quiet outside for a moment. Then I heard him slide down the wall to sit on the floor. "You're all I have left, Linny. Keep hating me, but please don't chase me away. Don't hide from me, okay?" He stood up, his back to the door. "Linny, look, I listened to you." I had my scent gland removed. My eyes shot wide open. I saw a hideous scar crawling across the back of his neck. This madman, 19, I hadn't seen him in a year. Zane was thinner, but his skin was much thicker. He started following me silently all day long. He would wait outside the publishing house from morning till night. And he would sit brazenly in the infusion room, keeping me company while I got my IV drips. By the time I recovered, Zane was sick. He stood at my door, his forehead burning hot. "Linny, can you let me in to warm up for a bit, please?" I said with a grim face. "You should go to the hospital." He gave a faint smile and said weakly, "Okay, you go on inside." "I'll be fine." The moment I closed the door, I heard a heavy thud outside. As I expected, Zane ended up on my sofa. I stood on the beige rug between the sofa and the coffee table and said unhappily, "You're a liar. You didn't really pass out." Zane looked up and smiled. I slipped. I turned away from him. "You should go back to work." "Stop coming to find me, Zane. My father took back the company. I only manage the charity foundation now." He walked over and gripped my shoulders with his 2 large, hot hands. "The foundation is called Safe Linden. Do you like the name?" When I had the gland removed, I almost died. I was in a coma for 3 months. For 3 months, all my dreams were about you. When I woke up, I thought, it doesn't matter if you don't forgive me or if you hate me. I just want to watch over you, take care of you quietly, and make sure you're healthy and safe. The large hands on my shoulders were trembling. I didn't dare turn around. "The prizes from the convenience store, that was you?" I asked. "Yes." "The checkup at the publisher and that hospital, that was you too?" "Yes." I turned around and glared at him indignantly. "My job was also—" No. Zane held his hands up over his head, as if surrendering. "When I found you, you had just been hired." I frowned. "Then this apartment. I bought it. The Rice Pot restaurant is yours too?" "No, I just send the Wagyu and shrimp over regularly and have them add it to your meals." I put my hands on my hips. "What else?" "The fireworks." He looked up at me, like a child admitting a mistake. "When the power went out, I was worried you'd be scared, so I set off fireworks from the building across the street." I fell silent. A liquid began to spill from my eyes, trickling down my cheeks. Zane's eyes filled with pain. He pulled me into a fierce embrace, begging me not to cry. I couldn't break free. I sobbed, "Zane, you're so annoying." He nodded, apologizing over and over. Finally, he asked, "Linny, can you let me atone? Let me stay by your side, please." I didn't answer. I turned my head to look at the silent snowfall outside the window. I thought to myself, this winter felt like it would be a long one. But for some reason, I was no longer afraid. The end.